Good morning and welcome back to another week at DroneDJ, which I'm back to the studio finally. This week we've got several stories for you, kicking off with the topic on shooting down drones. What would happen if your drone is shut down? And then we have some updates on the DJI band development in states. And last one, we also have an update on the Brink story for 911 calls we covered several weeks ago. Let's kick off with what happens if a drone is shut down. Let me share our story first.
Yeah, once again, people are shooting down drones, which is never a smart thing to do because, well, hate to break it to everyone, but shooting down a drone is like shooting at an airplane. The FAA treats it very similarly.
I actually have a story to share on that because one of our drones was shut down several years ago. We're talking about back in 2017, 2018, so before the new
Yep.
regulations came in force. Back then, in controlled airspace in Toronto area, we had to issue a NOTAM, notice to airmen. And for certain locations that's really close to the airport, we had to call before takeoff and call after landing. Because your
Yep.
NOTAM may be outstanding for several hours, right? But you only fly for, let's say, 20 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
one of my pilots was flying near the major airport, and we filed flight planning. We did everything right. He was there to film at a state home that had a pool, a really nice outdoor pool. So the drone was hovering above the pool to get a nice picture. It was, nice and low and steady. When a neighbor came out with a pretty powerful pellet gun because it was Phantom 4 Pro. So imagine it was alloy
Mm-hmm.
shell on the arm, right? And
Yeah.
bullet shot through the whole arm and went into the air. The development of that was because of all the aviation protocol we had to go through at the time. When we called the airport to report we landed, we said, well, we were forced to land because someone shot the drone. And then the air traffic controller actually reported to the local law enforcement because at that point it's an aviation incident,
Yeah.
especially with the proximity to the airport. And the rationale was imagine like that bullet can shoot through the alloy shell. So if
Yeah.
they missed it and continued to go into the airspace and there were tons of planes in the air, again, that's just an aviation hazard.
Yeah. That's gotta be the funniest, like, just a moment for the air traffic. By the way, someone shot our drone.
Yeah, and now here's the twist. So why did that neighbor shoot the drone? Was because the whole week someone was flying illegally up and down that
Mm-hmm.
whole estate home stretch and annoyed the whole neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
So when our pilot came and doing it legally and flying, just holding position, he became the perfect target. They thought he was the illegal pilot, but actually it was somebody else who was flying there illegally all week.
Yeah, so in this new case, there was a 6-year-old individual was shot a drone down in New York. New York City police came and arrested the person. So, yeah, like just don't. I mean, I feel like I'm speaking to anyone who is going to do this. I feel like so just don't do it. But I know no one here is going to actually do it because everyone watching this is probably
This
drone
is not a
pilots. So
standalone case. There have been
yeah,
several cases with drones being shot down by, especially by angry neighbor who thought, the drone was doing something or invading their privacy, right?
yep, yeah. In this case, the pilot, the actual the drone pilot was just flying over his property, so it wasn't even doing anything like
Yeah.
shady or anything like that. It just was flying over his property, and then I guess one of the neighbors. Gotta love that one neighbor who just doesn't, who just
There's always,
doesn't
but you know what?
care.
I'll talk about it from the other perspective too. Our recommendation to students, I had a few people who came in and said they encountered angry neighbors. And I asked them, I said, well, if you're flying your drone, if you're taking off, in front of your house and checking your roof, what I do is I first of all, if I have a drone, I go to my neighbors, at least the one on each side, and I let them know, look, I want to go up to take a look at my roof, just so you know I'm not checking anything in your yard. But if you like, I can give you a picture of your roof too. And it's just they're your neighbors. They live next
Hmm.
door to you. There's something about, maintaining a good neighborly relationship, neighborhood watch, right? So usually I ask
Yeah,
them, I said, look, like, why don't you just go knock on your neighbor's door, or when you see them next time before you fly, just give them a heads up. and let them know you're not doing anything illegal or invading their privacy. Because on the other side is, if I didn't know drones, and if I saw a drone hovering above my neighbor's house with a pretty high resolution camera, I don't know if that's looking at my house or looking through my windows, right?
Yeah.
If they came and let me know and asked nicely, that would be a different story.
I just always find it interesting people who just decide to bring a shotgun out and start shooting in the air. I feel like that's never smart in a neighborhood.
No.
It just doesn't make. I'm trying to think like what's going through that person's mind. They have to shoot this drone down while they're in a neighborhood. Like,
okay, well,
you do know those pellets are going to come back down, right? Like,
in my case, hear this: after the guy shot down the drone, he came out running with a baseball bat, ready to find that drone and smash it to pieces. And as it turned out later, of course, he was drinking, and he wasn't thinking clearly. He was angry, and there was all the other elements.
Yeah, of course. There's always alcohol involved with dumb decisions, so that's fair.
So on that note, don't shoot down the drone. If you have concerns, there are a lot more civilly, methods to handle the situation.
Yeah.
Moving on to the DJI ban story, I guess we're still waiting on all the amendments to be voted on.
So yeah, it passed the House. We're just waiting on the Senate to get through it. It's going to be a bit like the Senate's going to have to go through all their committees, through all the different parts of the bill. Then they're going to have amendments. Then they're going to have a vote. Then they got to reconcile between the House and the Senate. So, and the Senate wants way more money in the bill than what the House has. So it's a whole thing. There's no, it's also, the Senate could strip the ban out of the bill altogether. A lot of things could happen still. So, there's still, it'll probably be a couple months.
What is this story on the loophole?
Yeah. So the Hill reported. So we knew about the Anzer Robotics, how you pronounce it, the Raptor drone. We talked about that a month or so ago, and it was an interesting bit that we just didn't fully understand what they were doing, and now it seems to actually make a little bit more sense when you look at these other FCC approvals that came through. So Anzer Robotics is licensed. We talk about how licensing is Mavic 3 enterprise products. And Mavic 3
they're specifically manufactured from Malaysia.
Yeah, and so they're specifically manufactured here in the States, and they're just using the hardware. However, they're using their own software. There's apparently a similar move being played with a Hong Kong-based company called Kagito. I think is how you pronounce it. And they're called the Spectre and Spectre Mini. And so there's no photos of the actual drones. We only have labels right now that kind of show what it is. But according to The Hill, who reported this first, they're stating that experts say they're very similar to DJI drones. So I was peeking around the FCC reports, and while I didn't really find a smoking gun that says that they're exactly the same, there are two things that kind of pointed out that these are like probably DJI Mini 4s and like an Air 3 or a Mavic 3 or Mavic 4 probably. So first off, like the labels are exactly the same design and placement, and just like how they have the label like overlay is like it's exactly the same as DJI's. So all they did was change it from saying DJI Mini 4 to Spectre Mini. And then when you look at the thing that was the most closest to a smoking gun on these things being the same thing was if you look at the radiation output from the controllers. Now I say this like I'm not for certain on this spin because I've only looked between these two drones. I couldn't really find the Skydio one to see like if they're all the same, but the radiation output literally are the exact same photos between the reports. So they have two separate reports. They're at two dates. However, they're like written by the same person. And when you look through all the information, it is literally a carbon copy between the two drones. The only difference you'll see in this is because I literally took screenshots at different angles. But like they are literally the exact same photos. All the data that comes out of it are the exact same data points. So if they're using a copy of the drone.
Here's my question. Anzu is a U.S. company, but you said for Spectre, it's a Hong Kong-based company.
Yeah. So the drone. Here's the thing about the DJI drone. It's only DJI.
I thought it was the CCP, act or CCP bill was about.
It was. It says CCP, but the wording only says DJI.
So Autel can get through.
Alltel's not affected by the ban. Now there is a separate bill that is that has something to do with all Chinese drones, but it's not a ban. It's just it's a little bit. It's more like a like, hey, we don't like these drones. Don't do anything with them. Like, yeah, it's not really necessarily a ban like how this one is. So this company already has FCC approval for these two products, and also like so our best guesses is that when the ban goes into effect, these are two new products that DJI wants to release here in the States that they're not going, like, they're just going to use this brand to release it through. They're just going to license it, and they're going to make their money on the licensing and maybe take a cut of each sale, and then that's it.
The question is this a independent initiative of someone who chose to run the business for this purpose, or is this a DJI supported initiative?
No idea. It's no idea. It's all still in the murky darkness of private companies. Like, you'll never know. My biggest concern is the flight software. Is it in-house Cognito stuff, or is it DJI's?
Right.
Because that's the biggest issue. DJI has great hardware, but so does Skydio. Skydio has amazing hardware as well. The difference is that they use two different flight software. Yeah, and that makes DJI so much better than everyone else's. So, I mean, like, Autel has probably the exact same cameras, similar cameras, like, in all their products than DJI does, or at least as good enough cameras in all of them. But, like, the flight software is different, which means they fly differently, which means the user experience is different.
The integration, the algorithm, everything.
Yeah. So you might be getting the DJI hardware, but you're most likely not getting the DJI software, and that's kind of the biggest thing about DJI is how great their software is. Yeah. So, I don't know, they could be licensing their software, but I feel like that then gets into, that's a very easy, like, amendment to that bill, saying, oh, we're also banning, Cognito, like, because it's using the same software. So who knows? I just found it really interesting.
Continue to see how the story develops.
Yeah, like, we just gotta wait and see. Like, they're in the FCC database, so usually that means the releases come in the next couple months.
We'll see what happens.
And since one interesting thing I want to see is because the ban does right now, the ban doesn't retroactively ban anything. There's a way
but they're saying that they may be banning the previous models too, right?
There is a possibility. It's not a 0% chance, but it's definitely not a 100% chance. I'd be interested to see if we do see more FCC filings for, like, an Air 3S or a Mavic 4, just to get the approvals in so they can actually, like, sell it. Because that'd be interesting to see, like, if the approvals are in, can they still import it, or, like, if they can not import any more drones in. There's a lot of questions that we just, like, it's just, we don't know, because it's only FCC can't stop imports. FCC can only just stop approvals.
Well, that's why they still have the additional tariff that they want to put on, right? That's the separate.
And then the tariffs that make it hard to import. Which,
so
I mean,
I don't have a different label. Do you still have to pay the tariffs if this is?
I don't think. I don't know. Well, is the tariff on all Chinese drones? I think it's on all Chinese drones. Is it?
That's where it comes down to the CCP.
But then, is Hong Kong China?
Yeah.
Especially. Oh, it is, okay. I wasn't really special to China, or was, like, one of those, like, separate entities that doesn't have to deal with the same tariffs. So
they still do.
Maybe they got moved. Maybe got moved their manufacturing to Taiwan. Maybe that's a good idea.
Well, depending on which side you look at. Along with the same story, there is a twist where China is saying people using drones to leak Chinese state secrets.
Yeah, this has, like, same vibes as when the U.S. government says, like, "Hey guys, whoever the people in the intelligence industry, please don't go to Discord channels and, like, spread state secrets. Like, I understand you like the game, you like video games, but, like, don't share the F-22 like, user manual into a Discord, because that's classified." Like,
to say the least.
It's so, like, it just cracks me up that, like, intelligence agencies would be like, "Hey guys, can we, like, not
Because there
share
have
state
been
secrets.
a couple of stories from China as well. So one of them was saying a man was jailed for a year for illegally photographing a new worship, and he was bragging about it on military forums. Like that's super smart. Going back to your story about Discord, like same thing, right?
Can we just, I mean, like, just not brag about things like publicly that you. I mean, but here's the thing, like, I don't know, like, I don't know how the education of laws are over in China, but like, if you can here in the States, like, if you can fly it, you can take a photo of it. Like, there's nothing like there's I can't remember what the name of the brand of the company is, but up in northern Wisconsin, right on the border with Michigan, there's a shipyard that builds military ships. I can't like the missile cruisers or something. I think what they are, and I mean, as long as I'm on public property, away where as long as I'm not flying within controlled airspace, if I can get a photo of those ships, like they're not going to come after me. Now, I'm not going to because I'm not going to poke the bear of the U.S. government. But I don't think there's anything stopping you from going in there. Now, in China, I feel like there's probably like there's definitely more stricter on their laws of what you take
This
photos
happened
of.
before. This happened before the airspace became more restrictive around drones.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, March when I was in China, there were certain areas that I can't take off at all from DJI. That it was just
Okay.
saying military zone, you can't take off, right? But this
Mm-hmm.
happened before that, when someone can get an older model before the DJI no fly zone is fully restricting certain airspace. Again, I mean, you can have walls that's blocking the actual shipyard from the public seeing, but if someone
Yeah.
takes off with a drone, they can still see it, right?
Yeah.
But again, the plot twist is, hey, weapon goes both ways. It depends on in the hands of who's using it and what they're using it for, right?
Yeah. I'll never not laugh at governments begging their citizens to not leak state secrets. It's just like it's kind of like one of those like it's just like a teacher like telling like the kids in the class like, can you guys all just calm down, and they just like all hopped up on sugar and they're never gonna calm down.
Well, on that note, we do have our last story on the Brink development. Remember, we complimented how nice their commercial was a few weeks
It was
ago.
a very nice commercial. They did a
Yes.
very good job.
And now they're saying they support real-time streaming of 911 calls. What?
Yeah, which is interesting because I'm trying to figure out like what they would need, why they would need the 911 call streaming unless like for some reason the dispatcher wants to hear what's going on. I guess that could be useful for them, but I feel like at that point, like I mean, you're not already streaming that back to responding, units, but a critical rapid emergency response. Brink CEO, founder, Brink, to ensure officers have received comprehensive, unfiltered information, improving their situational awareness. Okay, so they're streaming. Okay, so I wonder if it's just their software just streaming 911 calls rather than actually going through the drone. But
I mean, I remember watching shows where people can get, radios and can listen into police channels. Is that still the case?
I think most days now they're encrypted, so I don't think they're like open. But I'm that's not my area of expertise. Not
So
exactly sure if
this
that
is
is
saying
still a
it
thing.
allows full 911 call details and live visuals, allow officers to access situations more accurately and make better informed decisions. So communication goes both ways, right? I'm wondering,
Yeah.
when they're saying it, does it mean the drone feed also goes back to the command and control center?
Yeah. Well, I wonder if this is going to the command and control or is this going to the 911 dispatcher, which are separate. So it's interesting. Either way, like they're adding more information to their suite of software. I mean, Brink is really doubling down on their, like we are a,
But
for
I'm
police,
saying,
for emergency company.
okay, and now the other thing is, yes, you can say you have the ability to do it, but I'm not seeing details on which specific state agencies or which areas are currently using this, like how many agencies
Yeah.
are using
You
this.
know, so Live 911 seems to be like, I think that's a company that's separate from Brink. that they're probably inputting their data from. So it have to be whoever's using Live 911, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of those solutions that operates in the government sector that never releases anything publicly. So I don't know. You'd be shocked how many companies, like even like small companies out in the middle of nowhere, are using like some pretty high tech stuff because they just get city grants or government, I was like state grants to do stuff like that. So
Yeah, it will be interesting to start seeing some operations happening with the integration, because remember the commercial, they were saying it would increase or decrease, it would decrease response time by what, 90%?
yeah, which is kind of crazy. Like I don't know how a drone reduces response time unless they're saying the drone getting there is responding.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more details on when the drone responds and it gets to the scene, like how many nested drone stations they've got to have to support this, because it needs to be on standby 24/7 almost.
Yeah, and like how big of a city are they dealing with? It's a small
Yeah,
city.
what's the radius, right?
Yeah, so.
Well,
But yeah, I mean they're doing crazy stuff.
The story. Along that note, we are hitting July 4th next Thursday. So July 1st is the holiday here, and then July 4th is down in States. So usually we see some kind of discount promotions or drone shows. We did
lots of drone shows.
Yeah,
lots of drone shows.
Especially the one that has fireworks mounted, right?
Yeah, that's gonna be everywhere. Like I'm sure that
I'll definitely watch out for how that works during July 4th.
Yeah, I'm hopefully I'll find one.
I'm sure we will. Well, stay tuned. We'll see you back here next week.